So we're going to go ahead and record. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Betty Sims. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I currently serve as a retention specialist with the Academic Advancement Center, and I also help to coordinate our academic programs. So I'll be moderating the session today, so please feel free to put any questions in the chat. We are a smaller group, so if folks want to just like unmute themselves and ask a question, I'm sure that would also be okay. If you're able to, feel free to turn your camera on, things like that. So Amy Kayleen will be presenting today. Amy Kayleen serves as the Career Education Manager for the College of Natural Sciences. Her professional and volunteer pursuits have ranged from the medical field to science, technology, business, published writing, arts, physical fitness, teaching, and career advising. Amy's professional focus includes STEM majors as well as students who are undocumented, different racial and ethnic identities, LGBTQ, students with disabilities, veterans, international students, and first-generation pioneers. She empowers people to achieve their goals by helping them to recognize their success and creating step-by-step action plans with smart career strategies for success. Awesome. So Amy, thank you so much for being here, and take it away.
Okay, well, good morning. Thanks, Betty. My pronouns are she, hers, and I'm really happy to be here to talk about the career development resources for STEM majors specifically. And since this whole symposium week is about a grad school focus, I'll also be mentioning the different aspects of grad school and how that might look in STEM, or even honestly with an undergraduate focus in STEM and maybe a graduate focus that's not in STEM. So hopefully we're going to cover the gamut and answer any questions that come up. All right, so see, we're going to continue on once my slides allow me to do that. Okay, and so if you're in the audience, if you could write a few things in the chat, which will help me tailor our conversation today. So if you could write what's your major, your level in school, like first year, sophomore, junior, or senior, which careers you might be interested in pursuing, or if you don't know, because not knowing, that's an answer too. And it's very, very, very common to not know, and it's totally okay. So I'm gonna just give a moment for some of the answers to come into the chat. And that'll just help me be more helpful to the audience. Okay, so for example, we've got senior wildlife biology, and I'm just going to move the chat here. I'm not too sure about the career. Okay, perfect. That's super helpful. Thank you for entering that information. So I'm going to keep those answers in mind as we continue on. Perfect. Okay, and so first we're going to go over some of the topics and resources that are available in the Career Center. And then after this section, we're going to do a deeper dive into STEM in particular. Okay, so more of like the overview and then a little bit more specific as we continue on. So what can the Career Center help you with? So some of our bigger topic areas are resumes, CVs, and cover letters. We can also, of course, help with career and major exploration so to the point in the chat. It's very normal to not know because there's so many different possibilities in the world, right? So many different careers that we can pursue. And that's why exploration is one of our main topic areas. I would say it's probably even with like resumes with the number of students who seek my assistance in the career centers to figure out what are the next steps for them as far as what to choose and how to choose it. We also discuss interviewing. So my next appointment after this is to help a student do a mock interview, the job search. So what does that look like? How do you become efficient at the job search? What are all those things you should be doing in order to not miss opportunities that could be out there? networking, aka building relationships. And why is that important? And how does that help lead to even figuring out what someone might want to do later? And even salary negotiation. A lot of people don't realize that your first offer should be negotiated. Don't just accept the first offer that comes along. And that's a tricky situation. And so unless someone is very savvy and skilled at that, I recommend getting some professional advice on how to kind of walk that fine line once that point in time comes along. And then also preparing for graduate school. So again, this whole umbrella focus is on graduate school this week. And so looking at, what are those steps involved in preparing for graduate school? When would we need to start getting ready for that? How do you organize yourself for that? And again, how do you make yourself efficient in that process? So those are just some of the big topics that we cover in the Career Center. And know that you don't need to come to the Career Center with those topics in mind. So for example, I was answering questions with a student just yesterday. She's wondering how a PhD in computer science is perceived by employers. And of course, the answer is it depends on the situation. And so we're talking about how to market that PhD depending on what kind of position she's applying to. I wouldn't say that that necessarily fits into any of these topic areas, but anything at all, any question at all, or concerns that cover these topic areas or anything that touches on your professional development, your careers, internships, just concerns that touch on work is something that we can help with. Okay, and so we are open virtually. Physically, our doors are closed right now, but otherwise we are 100% open. Everyone is still working full-time, and we've found over the last 7 months that we're able to continue every single one of our services online as well. And so I did put this link in the chat, career.colostate.edu. This is our main Career Center website. We have literally hundreds of resources that are completely updated. We went through them over the summer again. We have drop-in services. So Monday through Friday, we still have virtual drop-in services that open at 10 a.m. 5 days a week, where no appointment is needed. You can just show up on our website, click on the chat with us button, and we'll make sure that you're connected with a career educator within a few minutes to ask whatever questions are coming to mind that day. Of course, you can also make an appointment with a career educator. Those appointments are approximately 45 minutes, and that is a great opportunity to get a significant amount of time so that we can really tailor your situation with the details of your life. Of course, we offer workshops like what we're doing right now in this moment. We collaborate with our campus partners, happily. I'm super excited to see Betty again. And we offer events with employers. So whether it's the job fair or a number of workshops or meet and greets that employers arrange through the Career Center, we're constantly hosting those opportunities. And the reason for that is because in the Career Center, we know how important it is to build those relationships with employers, because employers are people. They want to hire people that they are comfortable with, that they have some trust in, that they've had a chance to get to know a little bit. And so part of a job search, quite honestly, is building relationships with employers. Someone who wants to say something? Okay. Feel free to put questions in the chat. And so if things come up and I'm very interruptible, I completely welcome that. And so feel free to unmute and ask questions or put any comments or questions in the chat as we go to. Okay. So I think it's really important for CSU Rams to recognize that the values of the Career Center, literally number one, are diversity and inclusion. So our mission, I wanted to share the exact words of our mission: we empower and equip CSU Rams to discover and pursue their goals that honor their identities through intentional collaboration with campus partners and employers. So I feel like what we're doing today, right, like collaborating with the AAC, honoring the identities of the students who are part of the AAC, is part of our mission. Our vision is equitable success for all CSU Rams. We know that there's some feelings out there that the reality is that there's a lot of white people who are employed in the Career Center. Career Services has historically been a very white profession. And I think it's really important for students to know that that is something that we're working on. We're hoping to get more representation of visibly diverse identities in the Career Center, and to know that even until we do, we are very much embracing and engaging in diversity and inclusion, have been for the last 3.5 years that I've been in the Career Center, and we're leaning into it more and more every day. So when you go to the Career Center website, this is what it looks like. So a couple of things that I want to point out. One, you can see up here, this is the Events tab. So I mentioned that we host events with employers. Again, really, really important to build those relationships. So if you go to the Events tab, you're going to see all of the events that we have lined up for the next many months. I also want to point out a couple things over here. So you'll see that the top right, the 3 icons are our most popular topics, and that's why we have them there. So resumes, cover letters, that kind of thing. Connect, so whether it's a virtual drop-in or a appointment, you connect with an educator there, and then the job search here. And finally, I just want to point out our right-hand search bar, and I'm going to be mentioning that again in a moment. So keep that in mind, because the first STEM resource we're going to visit, it's easiest to find it through the search bar. Okay. So I had planned to do breakout groups if we had a larger audience, but I'm going to change my plan only because we have smaller numbers here today. So I think I'm going to give you an option here. If you could put in the chat, those of us in the audience, these questions, or feel free to unmute yourself. So totally up to you. The questions are, have you accessed the Career Center for any of the services that I've already mentioned? And if so, which ones? And are you reminded of topics that you may need to seek career advice on? Because I know there's so many pieces of career development that if you don't see a list of things to think about, I think it's easy to not realize, oh my gosh, that's something I need to lean into more than I have been. So feel free to unmute or put some of your thoughts in the chat there.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, how are you, Marianne?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm new to CSU with the AAC, and so I haven't had a chance to visit the Career Center yet, but we'll hopefully get a chance soon, just to learn a little bit more about what the Career Center offers and how I can, of course, refer students as needed.
Great. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming, and look forward to meeting you in person. And I'd be happy to give you a personal tour of the Career Center once we're open. So feel free to reach out to me at that point, and I can walk you through and introduce you to some folks. And I mean, just an invitation. You don't have to take me up on it, but just an invitation. Okay, and thanks, Sarah. So you've met with a career advisor of your college, and you always need advice on cover letters. Okay. Okay, got it. Wonderful. So I agree with you. So cover letters, right? Because we have to tailor them. And so that's why it can be helpful to revisit the Career Center to get advice on if you're tailoring that particular cover letter correctly to the job and to the organization that you're applying to. Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, so we're going to do a deeper dive in some of the STEM areas here. So you'll recall that I showed you the career.colestate.edu website. That's our Career Center website. And I showed you that upper right-hand search bar. So if you go to the upper right-hand search bar and you type in the words that you see right here, what can I do with this major? If you type that in, what can I do with this major? It's a few clicks to get in, but you're going to see a lot of different majors listed. So I'm really glad we actually have biological sciences up here, because Sarah, you mentioned wildlife biology is an area of focus for you. So that was just pure luck, but I love that randomly I picked biological sciences there because it's very close to what you're working on. So this is a wonderful resource because basically if you go into the print version, you're going to see that it is organized this way. So this is a very long document. It's much longer than what can fit on my slide here. But on the left-hand side, you're going to see a column of areas of focus. So for example, research and development, healthcare, and it goes on and on and on and on once you actually get in there. In the middle column, you're going to see the kinds of employers that you would be considering working for if you went into that area of, say, research and development. Now, this is what really gets handy for our grad school theme this week: strategies. Strategies for being successful within this career area. So for example, Sarah, if you focused on your bachelor's degree in wildlife biology, you'd be looking at more like research assistant positions. So it even says a bachelor's degree in biology qualifies one for laboratory technician or research assistant positions, okay? Now, let's talk about what those options are if you continued in the wildlife biology or biological sciences track and went on to grad school. So a master's degree for advanced opportunities, more responsibility and higher pay, PhD to direct research projects and lead research teams. So basically, as you look through these strategies, you will see a theme in STEM. And the theme is, with a bachelor's degree in most STEM fields, definitely the most natural sciences, wildlife biology, biology, chemistry, biochemistry, things of that nature. I'm going to say neuroscience in there with it. If you stayed specifically in science, you're looking at research assistant type positions that you're qualified for. In order to take on higher levels of responsibility, to really take lead on research or even field work, you're looking at a master's degree or a PhD. So to stay truly within STEM, within science, you do need to have a graduate degree. Having said that, there's a couple things that I think it's really important to consider. One is you could graduate with a degree in STEM and then go take your career in a completely different direction. So just because you got a degree in STEM doesn't mean you have to stay in STEM for a career, because many, many, many employers are looking not specifically at, say, a wildlife biology degree. They're looking at all the transferable skills that come with it, that they know that you've learned in your university education. So many jobs would, yes, require a college degree, but wouldn't be specific as to what kind of degree that needs to be. Another thing to consider would be getting a degree in STEM, a bachelor's degree, and then getting a graduate degree in a completely different field. So just because you started in STEM doesn't mean you need to stay in STEM. So I'll use myself as an example. My undergraduate degree was in, I didn't go to CSU, but it's like neuroscience. It was closest to neuroscience. It was within the field of psychology in the university that I attended, but it was the brain science that I focused on. So I definitely had an undergraduate degree in STEM, but instead of staying in STEM, I actually decided to obtain a whole different skill set. And I got my graduate degree in education. So STEM for undergrad, non-STEM for grad. And that can be very appealing for many, many employers, because now I've got two different skill sets that I can combine. And honestly, I never would have qualified for the job that I have right now if I hadn't combined both of those different kinds of fields together. So there are many ways that you could take your education in the future, whether it's directly into the workforce in STEM for maybe like research assistant type roles, or whether it's directly into the workforce, not necessarily related to STEM, or whether it's graduate school in STEM for higher levels of leadership and responsibility, or whether it's graduate school not in STEM, to combine different skill sets. So I say that not to overwhelm, but to make sure that you're aware of so many options that you still have ahead of you. And I, of course, encourage people to seek out their individual career advising sessions to figure out what makes sense for them, because there's no right answer, right? Everyone's got different life context. And so if you're like, wow, okay, gosh, too many options, I would really recommend seeking out an appointment so that we can kind of work on that and see what makes sense for you. I'm just going to pause for a minute and see if anyone has any questions or comments, or Marianne or Betty, if you want to like add anything to what I'd said. And feel free, like interrupt me anytime, Betty and Mary. We can just, you know, converse on whatever comes up. This just does not have to be the Amy Show.
I really appreciate what you share about like the transferable skills. It's really like I'm really reminded of like the work that I do with students in terms of like a lot of times folks will share like a very linear like idea of a career path. And that can be really helpful because it provides like a plan and direction. And also it can be really stressful if students feel like it's not going to work out for them anymore. And so I definitely appreciate like like what you're saying in terms of like having flexibility and like being open to like gaining those different transferable skills and being open to like possibilities around change and also like even within a different STEM field, if that makes sense. So yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for adding that. And actually, you reminded me of something that I wanted to say. So I'm so glad you chimed in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really, really important also to reframe this idea that we've all grown up with, that we're going to grow up and be one thing. So, how many of us remember, like even starting as early as kindergarten or before, people would be like, what are you going to be when you grow up? And they expect you to be like, I'm going to be and it's like a short answer, right? Like a firefighter or a teacher or whatever it is. And the reality is that's not how the world of work works at all anymore. It used to, right? Like it could have been that our grandparents might have worked at the same company for 40 years. And that is so incredibly rare these days. And so I think it's really important, to your point, Betty, to understand the value of the transferable skills that students learn in college throughout that entire college process. And the reason is because in this generation, people are likely to change careers between 12 and 25 times in their lifetime. And so that flexibility that you mentioned, Betty, it's absolutely critical. Keeping the options open, being flexible in how you frame your career, and realizing that your next step after college is just that. It's just your next step. It's not that thing you're going to be forever. Employers know that employees are usually only hanging around at that place for maybe 2 to 3 years, and then they're going to go to a different job, because that is the statistics that we're seeing in the world of work across the vast majority of industries these days. And so what are some of those transferable skills, right? Communication, both written and presenting communication, leadership skills, problem solving, creativity, inclusive teamwork, being able to work with people from a variety of backgrounds toward a common goal, even personal accountability. So employers are looking for honesty and integrity and a demonstrated work ethic, being able to receive feedback appropriately and to learn from it rather than being resentful. So those are the kinds of things that all students are learning throughout their college experience. And they're the kinds of skills that will help them to hop to a different opportunity as it comes along. So, okay, I better keep moving or we're going to be stuck on this slide all day. Okay, so as you're continuing your career exploration, this is one of those sites that could be extremely helpful. It's always hard for me to narrow down the resources I want to share in a limited amount of time, but I put this in the chat, and so it's onetonline.org if you want to look it up later. So you could literally spend all day on this website alone, but I just want to point out a couple really helpful features. So up in the occupation quick search, if you type in a certain career that you're just curious to learn more about, that will take you to all sorts of different information, including the tasks that are required on that job on a daily basis. I think this is really important because we all have fantasies about what a particular job will look and feel like, and we're usually wrong, right? And I think it's really important to kind of come back down to earth and realize, what does a job really look and feel like? And so that occupation quick search will break it down into the different kinds of knowledge you need, how much time you might spend on email in the day, how much time you might spend collaborating with other people. And I think that can be really helpful for people to get a more realistic perspective on what they're interested in. The other thing I want to point out is kind of like this magenta box on the far right, I want to be a. And that will take you to a free online assessment about your interests. So for students who are not sure when they're still exploring, this can be a pretty quick way to help eliminate those things and to just kind of have some things that they already probably know about themselves, but to bring it down to earth, to consolidate it, to have it in front of them in a printed form. And it actually comes up with career ideas based on your interests. And so I have found this to be very helpful for a number of students. Okay. Another site that can be really helpful for gathering information is the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. So I also put this in the chat. It's bls.gov. And what you're going to find here is the Occupational Outlook Handbook. So I pulled up software developers as just an example because we do have a lot of future software developers in the College of Natural Sciences. And so the beauty of this site is it can give a quick summary. So the pay of different jobs, the typical entry-level education. So for example, it is a bachelor's degree for software developers. And I mean, I work with people who have PhDs in software developers, and they needed that PhD because they wanted to take the lead on important research. So for example, I know a man who works with Uber, and he is leading a team to develop self-driving cars. Well, he wouldn't be able to lead that team with a bachelor's degree in computer science, but the PhD qualifies him to lead that team. So as we're exploring, is it bachelor's, is it master's, is it PhD, or, is it a professional school like medical school or dental school or law school? It's recognizing there's options with all of those levels of education. And depending on especially the level of responsibility and leadership, sometimes those higher degrees are absolutely required. You can find out what those people do, what's the work environment, how to become one, the pay, the job outlook. So for example, for software developers, that's 21%, which is much faster than average. That's a growth in that area. Also, you can find out state and area data. And so, for example, if you're looking at working in the Denver metro area, when you're done working, you can see, what's the average pay for someone in a particular field in this geographic area, because it varies considerably. So, for example, when we have students who are moving to the Bay Area in California, we would expect to get a higher starting salary because it's such an expensive area to live in, or New York. And so location really matters when students are looking for jobs, and so they know how to negotiate that. And of course, you can also find similar occupations. So this can be a very helpful resource when you're doing more exploration and trying to figure things out. Okay. So I also put this link in the chat, and this is a website that I worked on creating with a team in the College of Natural Sciences. So basically, if you Google College of Natural Sciences and you go to undergraduate students, you can see that that's highlighted in this slide, in career resources, or just go to the link that I put in the chat. These are different kinds of job listings by 6 different STEM industry areas. So even if you're not in the College of Natural Sciences, this is still a page that can be really helpful because it covers biotech and life sciences. So that would be wildlife biology under the life sciences, behavioral sciences, math, statistics, and data sciences, computer science. And then further down the page, if you're actually on the website, you're going to see health professions and also engineering. So also for the professionals on this call, know that this site is here for you as you're working with STEM students. And each of these opportunities that are listed are real-time opportunities, literally updated real-time through Handshake, which is our jobs platform. So, and also, of course, you can see that there's just a few listed under each industry area, and then students can go to a whole lot more to click on that. So know that this is not just for students in College of Natural Sciences, but it's broken down intentionally by industry area, which will pretty much cover every STEM major that we have on campus. So I definitely invite you to visit this, check it out so that it can help you advise students as well. So a little bit down on that same page, you're going to also find guides for individual majors. So if you are working with students within natural sciences, or a major that's related or has some overlap with some of these, if you click into each of these icons, You'll find common employers that are employing our students. You're going to find common job titles. What are CSU grads in this particular major graduating into? What are the job titles that they're graduating into? You'll also find basically a checklist by year. So if you're a first year, in biological sciences, this is what you need to be thinking of career-wise. If you're a second year, this is what you need to be doing career-wise. And so we've got maps laid out for each of these students to make sure that they're on track and they're doing all the things that they should be doing to be competitive and to figure out what they want their next steps to be. I'm just going to pause there. I have a tendency to just kind of like talk. So I'm just going to see if there's any other questions or comments that come up, or if anyone just wants to mention something from their own experience that relates to this. Okay, I think we're good then. We'll keep going. Okay, also, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here, but also within natural sciences, every department now has its own career resources that are listed. So this is psychology, just as an example. And so you could go to Google, like CSU Department of Psychology, and then undergraduate students, and then you'll see career resources. And so there's many helpful things listed on this page. Current job listings that would probably be directly related to that major. Current internships for students who are looking for a summer internship. And then also further down on this page, you're going to have research opportunities and also part-time and on-campus jobs. So know that this is a great resource, again, whether you're in natural sciences or just interested in getting in more into the field of psychology, whether you're majoring in it or not. So remember that transferable skills comes in even during college, and so it's okay to cross over and to overlap your skill sets, and employers really appreciate that. So again, anyone's invited to visit these sites and use these resources. So it's going to come to a point that you've read everything that you can, and you've done your research on the internet to figure out more about different areas that you're interested in. And you're going to kind of know when you get to that point, because you're going to feel like you're at a bit of a block, and you're going to think, I need to find a different way to dig deeper and to really know for sure if this is my area of passion. Once you have that feeling, I would recommend using LinkedIn to connect with CSU alums who have gone down this track a little bit ahead of you. And the reason for that is because ultimately, the real experts in the field are the people who are working in the field, right? So if someone is curious about, what would it be like to be a wildlife biologist in the field? Like, what does that look like on a daily basis, really? Then the right person to talk to is someone who is doing it every day, right? Monday through Friday, sometimes on weekends. And so at that point, if you go to LinkedIn, which is considered the premier networking site, then what you want to do is on LinkedIn, type in just Colorado State University, and that will take you to CSU's LinkedIn page. Once you're at the LinkedIn page, you're going to see this button that says Alumni. And then you're going to be able to go to this Alumni Search. So as you can see, as you can see, we've got many CSU alums. And this will allow us to literally search by anything. So in this search field, you could type in wildlife biology. You could type in Colorado, Fish and Wildlife Service. You could type in any organization you're interested in. You could type in a location. You can search by a job title, all sorts of different things. And that will help you narrow down your search, and you will be able to find CSU alums who are in a field of interest for you. At that point, what I recommend doing is, reading up on their profile, and then you can actually send a message. LinkedIn allows you to send a message to someone. It'll be short because you're going to be limited to 300 characters. So reaching out and saying something like, hi, I'm a wildlife biology major at CSU, and I'm exploring whether that's something I'm going to stay in. what the job really looks like on a daily basis. Would you mind if I talk with you for 10 or 15 minutes to ask about your post-CSU experience? And that's pretty much it. So the beauty of LinkedIn is that people who are on LinkedIn recognize that the primary reason to be on it is to build relationships. And so we find that the rate of response is pretty high. Now, of course, we don't know what's happening in people's lives, but I would recommend reaching out to several people in a field of interest. And then what you want to do is try to set up what I would call an informational interview, where you're interviewing them about their career, their life. How did it work out? Now that they have this job, would they do this again? Oh, no, maybe they would do something different. Well, what would they do differently? Those are really, really important questions to ask. And honestly, it's one of the best ways to learn if something is something that you're very much still interested in, or if you hear answers and you're like, that's not what I want. Great information either way, because as soon as you eliminate things, you're also making very important progress. Because even in this world, when you can transfer jobs 12 to 25 times, we can't do all the same jobs at the same time, right? We got to take one experience at a time. So eliminating jobs is absolutely progress, and it's important progress. So I'm going to kind of just stop there, see if there's any questions or comments that come up that anyone wants to add anything.
I just have a question. So many of our students are searching for companies that have a stated commitment to equity and justice. And so do you have any suggestions on how to kind of figure out where a company supports students or employers, what their commitment is to that? Any tips that can help our students?
Absolutely. A couple things come to mind. One idea is getting a list of the employers who attend our diversity events specifically at CSU. So for example, we have like a Diversity Connect event, which is, it's like a mini job fair. And the employers who come to that they've already been vetted by the Career Center for their true commitment, not just stated commitment, but true commitment to diversity and inclusion. And so that would be one place to start. And I would be happy to send over a list, or any student can connect with me, and I'm happy to send over a list of employers who, for example, attended our most recent Diversity Connect event, which was like a week ago. But those are employers that we've already vetted, so that's one place to start. Another place to start is actually, there's a list of the large organizations that are ranked in order of most like highest commitment to diversity. And so I can definitely send you that link, Betty. Let me just make a note of that. And then I can send that to you, and then you can share that out with your colleagues or whoever you need to. But it's a very long list. It's a very vetted list. And I can tell you from just having worked with different employers and really like dug in with them on how true is this commitment, that I would say that list is solid based on my experience. So I'm just going to make a note here to send you the diversity link so that you can send that out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's a great question. Anything else come up? Okay. Okay, so something I want to bring up is what's called planned happenstance theory. And this is actually a career counseling theory that is taught in career counseling graduate programs. And so let's just kind of look at what it is, and then I'll mention why I brought it up. So the theory views unplanned events as both inevitable and desirable. It encourages exploratory activities to increase the probability that clients will discover unexpected career opportunities. Unplanned events can become opportunities for learning. And the bottom line is, by seeking out opportunities and preparing in advance for chance connections, you create additional career options for yourself. So if I were to break this up, I would say a planned happenstance theory is about two parts. There's the planned part, which means that it's really important for students to put themselves in situations where something really beneficial could happen for them. So for example, students who attend a job fair, right? There's no guarantee that they're going to land an internship or land a job as a result of attending the job fair. But by preparing for the job fair and showing up for the job fair and asking questions to employers and following up with employers, they're setting themselves up for something beneficial to happen. And then the happenstance part is chance, right? Like there has to be some magic or some coincidence or some serendipity or just some good chemistry between the person looking for the job and the person hiring for the job. So this is two parts, but it can only happen if the student puts themselves into situations where something could happen. And so I mention this because I think it's really important for students to understand that there's a certain amount of initiative and stepping out there that's required to be really efficient, and to figure out, if you're exploring career options, what are those career options that are going to be a good match for you. So examples of this also would be reaching out on LinkedIn to CSU alums, right? That's you taking the initiative to reach out and to learn more about a field. And the benefit is you can figure out, is that a field that you still want to go into? And the other benefit is now you have a connection in the field. And as soon as you have a connection, your chances of landing a position actually go up by 13 times. They're 13 times better to land a job as soon as you know one person in an organization compared to if you just submitted a resume and a cover letter. So seeking out those opportunities to connect with alums who are in the field, connect with employers who are holding a workshop, going to a job fair, all of those extra little steps to put yourself out there and ask good questions will help people land in the right place and land there quicker. Okay, so in the chat, what are some next steps you can take to open doors to new opportunities in STEM? So it could have been something that I've mentioned, I've given a lot of examples, or it could be something that I haven't mentioned. But what could be some next steps that would make sense for the people here? And it could be little things, right? It doesn't have to be anything major. It could just be like little baby steps.
I think for me, I'll just share with you, I definitely learned a lot about what opportunities CSU has, what resources we have, particularly like the departmental internships and career opportunities, even for students just to kind of see like what's available and what's out there. I will definitely like start referring students to those resources more frequently. Yeah, that was really interesting to learn. Thank you.
Okay, great. Glad that was helpful. And I see in the chat, like you said, reaching out to people in the field. Yes, exactly. So whether it's employers who are working in the field and hoping to recruit, whether it's alums who have they've had the experience, they're a few years ahead of you and they're out there doing it. That is one of the single best ways to figure out, is this sounding really exciting to me? Or is this not at all what I had in mind? And it's okay for it to be not at all what you had in mind. I was just talking with a student yesterday who's in ecosystem science and sustainability. And he made an appointment with me because he really thought that's what he was going to get into. And as he's got into that program, he's realized that it just wasn't what he thought it was. He had these fantasies about what that would look like and feel like, and it's not playing out the way that he had imagined. And there's nothing wrong with the field. I know so many other students who are truly dedicated to that field and they love it. And you know, every individual is different, and we need to follow that instinct and you know, our own gut nudges and lean into those areas that feel right for us. So it's okay to change our mind, and it's okay to give ourselves permission to explore and to lean into those transferable skills, no matter where you are in your education or in your career. Okay. So To be career ready, one of the best things to do is to be involved, right? So whether it's internships, part-time and on-campus jobs, being involved in research that's on campus, student organizations. So if you're a senior, it's not too late to join a student organization that's related to fields of interest, or organizations that are totally not related to fields of interest, because you never know who you might meet there or what kind of career they might be following that could be of interest to you as well. And of course, the employer events, which I've already mentioned. Okay, so I think we kind of already covered this. If we were going to be in a bigger space, I think I would do these breakout groups just for people to kind of like swap ideas with each other and see what their next steps are. But I'm going to go ahead and skip this at this point for now. So just to kind of close this up for today, I do want to mention Gear Up for Grad School. So it's really perfect timing. The Career Center is actually hosting our own grad school event coming right up on November 5th. I will actually be one of the people who will be hosting that event as well. And I would call it a speed learning event. So just a lot more information on grad school and the process, who it makes sense for, who it might not make sense for, and you know, how to organize yourself for that, and how to get prepared and get organized in your mind and make sure that you're following the right steps and you're not forgetting about something. And with that, I'll just open it up to any questions. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And whether it's in the chat or anyone wants to unmute, I'll just open it to any other questions that come up.
I have a question.
Okay.
So when I talk with students about networking and making connections, I often get the feeling that it feels very risky for students to do that. So do you have any like tips or suggestions, especially like when you're reaching out, like maybe via LinkedIn with someone that you've never met before in person? Like how do you make that A, feel natural, and B, successful? Any tips around?
Yes, totally. I think that's a great question, because I think people who aren't accustomed to reaching out, that feels really awkward at first, and it's really hard to take that first step to feel okay with it. So thank you for the question. So a couple things. The first thing I would do is I would reframe what networking is and the purpose of it. And I intentionally use words interchangeably, such as networking or building relationships, because networking has this kind of like sleazy feel to it sometimes. And so it's building relationships really is essentially what that is. And I think what's important for anyone to understand is that it's not just about reaching out to get something from someone. I think that's what feels awkward and uncomfortable, is that we're reaching out and we're thinking to ourselves, because I need something from you. Mm-hmm. But really, networking at its best is a two-way street. And so the hope really is that you're getting to know each other, and probably at different times in your careers, sure, that person will be able to help you, but you'll be able to help them too. And so as I've gone along in my own career and I've developed a very large network, one of the greatest pleasures of having a large network is that people reach out to me all the time for help. How can I help them in their career? And it is a great pleasure for me to help them. And sometimes I reach out to other people to help me in my career. And so it goes both ways. It's really about something like professional friendship, where we know each other, we stay in touch to help each other as the time demands, or as it makes sense, and we're in a position to help someone else. And so I think that's really important for people to understand. As far as what to say upon reaching out, I think there's a couple of things you want to avoid saying, and things that could be helpful to say. One is, you don't want to say, I need a job. Can you look at my resume? Can you please hire me? Right? Like that doesn't feel good for anyone. So avoid outright saying that you need a job. What can feel good for everyone is saying that you just want to learn more. I would love to learn from you. I would love to hear about your career journey. That can feel really good for everyone involved. It can feel good for the person reaching out, because you are showing humility, right? You're showing a willingness to learn. You are admitting that you don't know everything and you would love to learn more. And it can feel great for the person who's getting that outreach. And for someone to reach out and say, I would love to learn from you, or I would love to hear about your journey. Imagine, most people are like, wow, someone wants to learn from me. Someone wants to hear my story. That's very motivating, right, for most people. And so I will usually help students think about themselves 10 years down the road. I say 10 years down the road, fast forward, you're in a position to hire someone else. You're in your career, you've figured out a lot. What if a CSU RAM reaches out to you and says, would you maybe spend 10 or 15 minutes with me, just answering my questions, telling me your story, telling me about your career? What are you likely to say? Are you likely to respond and say, sure, I'll tell you? Or are you going to just say no or ignore it? And the vast majority of people are like, well, actually, yeah, if someone reached out, I'd be so happy. I'd actually be honored. I'd be honored to tell them my story. And that's true. It really does happen that way. I'm not just trying to paint a rosy picture. It really does happen that way. And so that's how I would frame that. Is that helpful, Betty?
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Looks like we do have a question in the comments as well.
I've shied away from getting involved in my last year of school. Is it too late to get involved, or where to make a notable impact on my resume? Great question. It's not too late to get involved. And I would definitely make it a priority to get involved, since we are in fall semester and we're kind of wrapping that up. Some of the easiest ways to get involved at this point would be joining student organizations that are of interest for you. So the SLICE office is a great place to connect with. We've got hundreds of student organizations on campus. And you can definitely put that on your resume. Many of the organizations are connecting with employers within their field. You will meet other people who have similar interests, and building those relationships and figuring out what they plan to do next can be really helpful for you. Another thing to consider doing would be even like a part-time job or an on-campus job, even a job in the community. And it doesn't have to be a lot of hours. Like, I know that students are super busy right now, but that's definitely, again, we come back to the transferable skills. So, even if it's not related to, say, wildlife biology, if it's working in a coffee shop, or if it's, just any job, honestly, you will develop those transferable skills. And so even if it's 5 to 10 hours a week, which is not much in the big picture, that experience is something that employers will really value. So for example, I've heard employers say that, for example, for even hiring interns, they don't necessarily expect students to really know how to do the job or to have the skills that they need to do the job. But many of them will hope that the student has had a job, even if it's completely unrelated, because they want to know that people know how to show up to work on time, just have some standards of how to work with other people. So Sarah, without having any other knowledge at all about your life, those are the two things that come to mind at this point in your career trajectory. And of course, feel free to reach out to me, make an appointment, and we can kind of go over the details and what might make more sense for you if those answers don't land well. So just an invitation there. Any other questions, comments? Oh, you're welcome. And Betty, you have like so much information in this area too. Any other thoughts or comments or questions or your own experience? No pressure. Just want to make sure you're the platform.
I feel like I learned a lot. This has been very informative for me. So thank you so much for giving some of your time this morning. I really appreciate it.
Of course, anytime. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, totally.
All right.
All right, folks. So the committee that put together this conference will be in touch next week with an opportunity for you to provide feedback in terms of how the session went. Please make sure to fill that out if you are an AAC participant. That is how we will essentially give you credit for participating today. Thank you all so much, and have a great rest of your day.